Car makers are always chasing the next big idea, but sometimes those ideas get weird. From levitating gear knobs to built-in ice makers and horse heads on the hood, some inventions leave us wondering, what were they thinking? Buckle up as we dive into the strangest, quirkiest, and most head-scratching features ever installed in cars. Oldsmobile Lightning Rods Shifter. Back in the early 1980s, General Motors decided to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the iconic Oldsmobile hearse in an unforgettable way. How did they do it? Well, they introduced something completely wild and truly unique: the Lightning Rods Shifter. Even today, this quirky automotive feature stands out as bizarre, but it was no less peculiar back when it first appeared. Imagine sliding behind the wheel and seeing not one, not two, but three separate gear levers sticking up from your console. That's exactly what greeted drivers brave enough to take on this mechanical oddity. Designed specifically for a 4-speed overdrive automatic transmission, the Lightning Rod system gave drivers a surprising degree of manual control for an automatic car. The first two levers let you handle the shifts manually between first, second, and third gears, allowing a sportier feel when driving. The third lever? Well, that was your gateway to engaging the smooth, fuel-saving overdrive. But here's the catch. This level of complexity didn't exactly thrill drivers who specifically bought automatics for convenience. Most folks getting behind the wheel of an automatic transmission vehicle were looking for simplicity. Turn the key, shift once, and cruise effortlessly down the highway. With the Lightning Rod setup, what was supposed to be easy suddenly felt like a chore. Add to that the hefty price tag General Motors attached to this unusual feature, and it's clear why the Lightning Rods never really caught on. Ultimately, this flashy innovation fizzled out quickly. Toyota Van Ice Maker. Back in 1984, Toyota decided to add a feature to their cargo vans that was not just cool, it was ice cold. Literally. Imagine opening your van door and finding, tucked neatly inside, a genuine ice maker about the size of a shoebox. This was Toyota's quirky attempt to appeal to families and outdoor enthusiasts, turning everyday road trips into refreshing adventures. At first glance, an ice maker inside a vehicle sounds pretty practical. Heading to a campground for the weekend? You'd have fresh ice right there, ready to keep your drinks cold or soothe bumps and bruises after outdoor activities. It probably made those soccer moms feel like superheroes, effortlessly reaching for a handful of ice whenever someone sprained an ankle or skinned a knee. On a hot summer day, it was tempting to think about having endless ice cubes just inches away as you cruised down the highway. But this clever feature wasn't quite as popular as Toyota had hoped. For most drivers, making ice while actually driving down the road seemed like overkill. After all, how often did you urgently need ice on a regular commute? Plus, the ice maker took up precious interior space, leaving some drivers annoyed rather than delighted. Maintenance issues also cropped up, turning this cool idea into a chilly headache for some owners. Still, Toyota's ice maker didn't vanish completely. The idea was genuinely useful enough that RV makers quickly picked it up, where it remains a beloved feature today. Automatic seat belts. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, car companies tried something unusual to encourage drivers to buckle up: automatic seat belts. On paper, this innovation seemed brilliant, a technological solution to the growing enforcement of new seatbelt laws. Remember, in those days, wearing a seatbelt wasn't yet second nature. Many drivers resisted, viewing these laws as intrusive. Automakers thought automatic seatbelts would solve the problem, but in reality, things didn't go so smoothly. Unlike today's integrated seatbelts, these automatic systems typically featured only the shoulder strap, mechanically controlled by a motorized track connected to your car's door. You'd get into your car, close the door, and the seatbelt would slowly glide along a track toward the rear, snugly crossing your chest. Open the door, and it would reverse, sliding forward again to release you. But here's where things got tricky. Drivers often skipped the critical second step, fastening the manual lap belt. They figured the shoulder strap was enough, leaving themselves vulnerable to injury and accidents. Even worse, imagine dropping your keys or wallet just outside your door. Instinctively, you'd pop the door open to reach for them, triggering the motorized belt. Suddenly, you found yourself awkwardly pinned or yanked toward the dashboard or steering wheel, an annoyance at best, and a safety hazard at worst. Over time, mechanical failures also plagued these automatic belts. Motors wore out, leaving the belt stuck midway or completely jammed. A belt trapped forward was useless, while one stuck in the rear position still required drivers to use the manual lap belt, a hassle many simply ignored. Eventually, drivers and manufacturers alike realized that simpler, more dependable seatbelts worked better. Ford Wrist Twist Steering System. In 1965, Ford decided to think way outside the box, or rather, outside the steering wheel. Determined to shake things up, they reached beyond the usual automotive experts, bringing in an aerospace engineer to design something radically different. The result? The now infamous wrist twist steering system, proudly showcased on the Mercury Park lane. This wasn't just another subtle tweak, it was a full-on reimagining of how drivers interacted with their cars. Instead of a conventional round steering wheel, the wrist twist featured two small 5-inch rings positioned where your hands naturally rested. Imagine gripping two small loops, one for each wrist, instead of grasping a familiar wheel. It allowed the driver to steer using either the left or right wrist independently, or both together. Essentially, turning your car became more like operating a futuristic spacecraft than maneuvering an ordinary family sedan. Yet, while this novel concept might sound fascinating today, reactions at the time were decidedly mixed. Drivers were comfortable with the familiar round steering wheel, something intuitive that didn't require special training or practice. Adapting to the wrist twist demanded patience and coordination, making everyday driving suddenly complicated. Most people found it strange, impractical, and frankly, unnecessary. Ford quickly learned that even innovative ideas could become inconveniences if they disrupted simplicity and ease of use. Consumers weren't ready to trade comfort and familiarity for novelty alone. Not surprisingly, the wrist twist faded away, quickly, remembered as just another quirky experiment in automotive history, proof that sometimes the classic design remains the best. After all, why reinvent the wheel when it already turns just fine? Have you ever owned a car with a weird or unusual feature? Tell us your story. Chevy Swivel Seat. Chevrolet has always been willing to experiment with comfort and innovation, and the swivel seat was one of their boldest and perhaps quirkiest ideas. First popping up in the late 1950s and making brief reappearances through the decades, this feature allowed car seats to smoothly pivot outward, facing directly towards the open door. But that wasn't all. They could rotate a full 360 degrees, turning completely around inside the car. Imagine spinning around in your seat, chatting comfortably with friends, or easily hopping in and out without awkwardly twisting your body. At first glance, the swivel seat made a lot of sense. For elderly passengers or anyone with limited mobility, it simplified the often cumbersome process of entering and exiting a car. It was also a thoughtful touch for women wearing dresses or skirts, eliminating the discomfort of awkwardly sliding across traditional car seats. On family road trips, passengers could easily rotate their seats to talk face-to-face, creating a cozy living room vibe right inside the vehicle. But despite these promising benefits, the swivel seats never fully caught on. Why? Well, practicality became an issue. Turning fully around while the vehicle was moving raised obvious safety concerns. Seatbelt positioning became tricky, and passengers spinning around freely inside a moving car posed potential dangers. Automakers also discovered that the mechanical complexity added cost and extra maintenance issues, which consumers weren't eager to accept. Honda CR-V shower. Back in 1995, Honda got adventurous and added a rather unexpected feature to its popular CR-V, a built-in shower. Now, at first, this might sound like a clever idea. After all, vans and RVs often come with showers, so why not equip a smaller, versatile SUV with one too? Honda imagined people camping, enjoying outdoor sports, or even just washing off their muddy dogs after a hike. The Honda CR-V shower was essentially a small handheld nozzle plugged into the vehicle's 12-volt socket, along with a compact plastic tub to stand in. You'd simply plug it in, and voila, a refreshing rinse after a dusty trail or a muddy adventure. But here's where reality set in. The water was always cold. Imagine standing outside your SUV after a long hike, looking forward to a relaxing shower, only to be blasted by icy water. Unless your CR-V had been roasting in the sun for hours, you'd never enjoy a warm shower. Though, realistically, who enjoys scalding water heated by a hot car? As quirky as this feature was, most people found little use for it. Sure, it sounded practical on paper, but in everyday life, how often did drivers really need an outdoor shower attached to their compact SUV? For most commuters, city drivers, and even casual weekend adventurers, this extra accessory simply sat unused. Eventually, Honda quietly phased out the shower. Yet, the idea hasn't entirely disappeared. Aftermarket companies picked up where Honda left off, offering portable showers with improvements like heated water. Today, the CR-V shower stands out as a charming but ultimately impractical moment in automotive history, one that might make us smile, but probably wouldn't make us miss it. Mercedes-Benz Perfume Dispenser. If you've ever found yourself hurriedly eating fast food in your luxury car, only to panic about the lingering smell, Mercedes-Benz had your back. Understanding that drivers of their vehicles are often busy professionals, constantly on the move and regularly hosting clients or colleagues, they came up with an elegant solution, the Mercedes-Benz Perfume Dispenser. This wasn't your everyday air freshener hanging awkwardly from the rearview mirror. Instead, Mercedes took it to another level, designing an integrated fragrance system hidden neatly inside the glove compartment. Their engineers didn't just settle for any ordinary scent. They traveled the globe, working meticulously with professional perfumers to create a fragrance distinctly refined and exclusive to Mercedes-Benz. Here's how it worked. The sleek dispenser quietly connected to the vehicle's climate control system. Whether you're blasting heat on chilly mornings or cooling down with air conditioning during a hot summer day, a simple push of a button gently circulated the subtle, luxurious scent throughout the cabin, effortlessly eliminating any telltale odors of your secret drive-through indulgences. The beauty of this system was subtlety. It wasn't overpowering, just enough fragrance to mask evidence of a rushed lunch or snack on the go. No one riding along would ever suspect you had just indulged in a quick burger and fries. Instead, they'd step into your Mercedes feeling like they'd entered a 5-star hotel lobby, fresh and inviting. Chrysler Highway Hi-Fi. Back in the 1950s, long before streaming services or even CDs, people were stuck with AM radio as their only in-car entertainment option. But AM radio had its limits: spotty signals, static-filled broadcasts, and frequent dropouts. Chrysler noticed this problem and, in 1956, introduced something wildly innovative, and maybe just a little ambitious: the Highway Hi-Fi. In simple terms, this was literally a record player built right into your dashboard. At first glance, the idea sounded fantastic. Imagine cruising down the highway, listening to your favorite tunes anytime you wanted. No more hunting for a radio station. You could simply bring along your cherished collection of 45 RPM records and have the perfect soundtrack for every drive. But reality quickly set in. First off, vinyl records weren't exactly made for portability. Drivers quickly learned the frustration of carefully stacking fragile records in their cars, always worrying about scratches and damage. Plus, on hot summer days, the scorching heat inside the car would easily warp or melt records, permanently ruining your favorite singles. However, the most glaring issue with the highway hi-fi was its practicality, or rather, lack thereof. Cars in the 1950s didn't glide smoothly. They bounced, rattled, and jolted along roads. Every pothole or bump made the needle skip, ruining the listening experience and often damaging the records themselves. Instead of enjoying a smooth melody, you ended up with music that jumped around or skipped altogether. Ultimately, Chrysler's innovative highway hi-fi quickly went from exciting novelty to frustrating headache. While it was definitely ahead of its time, the world simply wasn't ready for in-car record players. What's the strangest car feature you've ever seen or heard about that we didn't include? Rolls-Royce door umbrella. In 2013, Rolls-Royce proved once again why they're synonymous with luxury and meticulous attention to detail. Their innovation wasn't about horsepower or advanced electronics. It was something as simple yet inelegant as an umbrella. But of course, this was no ordinary umbrella. Rolls-Royce embedded this upscale accessory neatly into the car's door, ensuring you're always prepared for an unexpected shower. Now imagine stepping out from your prestigious Rolls-Royce into an unexpected downpour. Instead of fumbling around for an umbrella or getting soaked while your chauffeur races to fetch one, you calmly open the door, press a discreet button, and gracefully retrieve your Rolls-Royce branded umbrella. Not only does this keep you dry, but it also sends a subtle signal of sophistication to those watching nearby. What truly makes this feature remarkable isn't just that the umbrella fits conveniently inside the door. Rolls-Royce went a step further. Once you're back in the car, just slip it into its dedicated holder. This holder isn't merely a convenient storage compartment. It's designed to circulate warm air through the umbrella fabric, drying it thoroughly within minutes. That way, you'll never have to worry about mold, unpleasant odors, or dealing with a dripping umbrella at your destination. Of course, such convenience and luxury don't come cheap. This elegantly simple feature can cost around $1,000, a hefty price tag indeed, but quite fitting for Rolls-Royce's elite clientele. It might seem extravagant to some, but for those who can afford it, the door umbrella embodies the timeless Rolls-Royce spirit, refined, thoughtful, and effortlessly classy. Jaguar Land Rover, levitating gear knob. When it comes to futuristic car features, Jaguar Land Rover truly outdid themselves with their mesmerizing levitating gear knob. Yes, you heard that correctly, a gear knob that actually levitates. Introduced to captivate drivers and passengers alike, this unique feature feels more like something from a science fiction movie than from a standard luxury car. Imagine settling into your Jaguar, starting up the ignition, and then, with just a wave of your hand, watching as the gear knob gently rises upward from its resting position. It's an impressive trick, almost making you feel like you have Jedi powers. To select your gear, you simply rotate the sleek knob effortlessly to drive, park, or reverse. Users who've experienced it firsthand rave about the knob's smooth, precise feel, its premium craftsmanship, and the satisfying tactile response as it clicks securely into place. But as magical as this levitating gear knob may seem, it does come with a small catch. If your car's battery runs down, that elegant floating motion instantly disappears, taking the illusion of Jedi-like abilities along with it. Without power, your futuristic knob remains firmly locked down, forcing you back into reality and reminding you that perhaps the Force isn't truly strong with you, after all. Subaru Brat bolt-in bed seats. Back when safety regulations were a bit looser and fun was sometimes prioritized over practicality, Subaru introduced a quirky feature in their iconic little Brat pickup trucks. In an effort to make riding in the open-air bed of a truck safer, or at least slightly less dangerous, they installed something that seems almost unbelievable today: bolt-in bed seats. These weren't your typical plush reclining seats, though. Made entirely of rigid plastic, these unique chairs were designed to allow passengers to comfortably enjoy the ride in the back while watching the world zip by behind them. No more sitting awkwardly on cold metal or holding on for dear life. Subaru offered a designated place to sit, bringing a touch of comfort to an otherwise bumpy experience. Now, you might wonder how Subaru ensured passenger safety with these bed seats. Well, here's the thing. They didn't exactly rely on seat belts or harnesses. Instead, each seat came equipped with specially designed ski pole-like grips. Passengers were encouraged, well, practically required, to hold tightly onto these handles as the Brat zoomed around corners or cruised down highways. While this concept might make safety regulators shudder today, at the time, it perfectly captured Subaru's spirit of adventure and youthful enthusiasm. These quirky bed seats turned even mundane trips into mini-adventures, letting passengers feel like they were part of something special. Eventually, stricter safety regulations made features like these vanish from the roads, but the Subaru Brat's bolt-in bed seats live on fondly in the memories of those who once bravely grabbed hold of those handles, feeling the wind in their hair as they cruised in style. Nissan S Cargo Speed Limit Chime. If you've never driven in Japan, chances are you've missed out on one of the most peculiar and downright frustrating automotive features ever created. Back in the late 1980s, Nissan introduced a quirky little van named the S Cargo, cleverly named to resemble the French word escargot, or snail. Unfortunately, the van lived up to its slow-moving namesake in more ways than one. One of the strangest things Nissan included in the S Cargo was a speed limit warning chime. Now, a speed reminder might sound helpful at first, gently alerting you when you're approaching the legal limit. But this wasn't your gentle reminder. It was more like a relentless, ear-splitting alarm. Once you hit the predetermined speed, this shrill chime would kick in, ringing endlessly until you stopped your car entirely. Yes, you heard right. Simply slowing down wouldn't silence it. Imagine trying to calmly navigate busy streets or highways while enduring constant ringing that didn't quit until you physically turned off the engine. It drove drivers crazy, to put it mildly. As if that wasn't enough, the Nissan S Cargo had a few other irritating quirks too. Every single time you closed the door, the side mirrors shifted out of alignment, forcing you to adjust them repeatedly. And of course, the radio had a reputation for malfunctioning frequently, adding yet another reason for frustration. If you could invent a totally wacky car feature, what would it be? Let your imagination run wild. Reliant Robin three-wheeler. When it comes to oddball cars in automotive history, few are as instantly recognizable, or as delightfully strange, as the Reliant Robin. First introduced in 1973, this quirky little British car turned heads for one major reason: it had only 3 wheels. With 2 wheels in the back and just 1 in the front, the Reliant Robin looked like a car trying to imitate a tricycle, and that's exactly what made it stand out. In the UK, the Robin was more than just a novelty. It was actually a hit with budget-conscious drivers. Why? It promised to save money in all sorts of ways. With fewer parts, it was cheaper to manufacture and maintain. Fuel efficiency was impressive thanks to its lightweight fiberglass body and tiny engine, making it ideal for the fuel-conscious climate of the 70s. Even the insurance rates were a bonus. Because of its 3-wheel setup, the Robin was technically classified more like a motorcycle, which meant lower premiums for many owners. But it wasn't all rosy. The unique wheel configuration, with just one wheel up front doing all the steering, made the car notoriously unstable, especially around corners. Drivers had to be careful not to tip the vehicle, which earned it a bit of an infamous reputation in pop culture. American automakers took notice, but ultimately decided it wasn't worth the risk. The Robin's design never made it across the pond in any serious way. Water balloon bumpers. In the wild world of 1960s automotive experimentation, few features were as odd and oddly practical as water balloon bumpers. Yes, you heard that right. Some cars were actually equipped with inflatable rubber bumpers filled with liquid, designed to absorb the shock of low-speed impacts. It sounds like a kid's summer prank, but this was a real safety feature tested on the busy streets of New York, San Francisco, and Portland. The idea behind these so-called water balloon bumpers was actually pretty clever. During low-impact fender benders, like a light tap in traffic or a gentle scrape while parking, these fluid-filled bumpers would cushion the blow. Instead of metal crunching or paint chipping, the bumper would simply compress and, in some cases, burst. While that may sound messy, it meant the car's body remained mostly untouched, saving drivers from bigger repairs. And they did work, at least for the types of accidents they were designed for. Taxis, which faced constant stop-and-go traffic and frequent minor collisions, benefited the most. But there was a catch. Once these bumpers burst, they weren't cheap to replace. At the time, getting one repaired could cost up to $1,100, a serious expense, especially in the 60s. That price tag made people wonder if the novelty was really worth the payoff. For most drivers, the idea of paying that much for what essentially looked like a glorified water balloon didn't hold water. Still, it remains one of the more inventive and entertaining solutions from a time when car makers weren't afraid to try the unusual. Honestly, if I were a kid back then, I probably would have offered to tie on real water balloons for half the price and had a blast doing it. Uriah Smith's horsehead carriage. Back in the late 1800s, when automobiles were just beginning to roll onto the streets, people were still deeply tied to the world of horse-drawn carriages. The transition from horses to horsepower wasn't exactly smooth. Early cars were underpowered, often unreliable, and, most importantly, terrifying to the animals that shared the roads. That's where Uriah Smith stepped in with one of the strangest ideas in automotive history. In 1899, Smith invented what he called the horseless horsey, a bizarre attempt to bridge the gap between the old and the new. His solution? Mount a large, lifelike replica of a horse's head on the front of a motorized carriage. The logic behind it was surprisingly thoughtful for the time. Smith believed that if a live horse saw what looked like another horse trotting along ahead, it wouldn't be as frightened by the unfamiliar machine it was actually seeing. It was kind of like camouflage, automotive style. The concept, though well-intentioned, didn't really take off. The real problem wasn't the look of the car, it was the sound. The unfamiliar clanking, chugging, and occasional backfiring of those early engines were what spooked the animals most, not the absence of a horse figure. A fake head couldn't mask all that mechanical noise. Hit-and-run identifier device. In the early days of automobile travel, things were chaotic on the roads. Traffic laws were still being figured out. Drivers weren't always properly trained, and accidents happened far more frequently than anyone liked. By the 1920s, one alarming trend was on the rise: hit-and-runs. Drivers would collide with pedestrians or other vehicles and speed away before anyone could catch their license plate, let alone identify them. To tackle this growing issue, a lawyer in the 1930s came up with an idea that sounds more like something out of a slapstick movie than a courtroom strategy. he designed a hit-and-run identification device meant to expose the identity of the fleeing driver in dramatic fashion. The concept was simple, but bold. If the car struck a person or object, a mechanism on the bumper would trigger, dropping down a large panel with the vehicle's license number, and in some versions, even the driver's name, displayed in giant, easy-to-read letters. The idea was that witnesses or victims could quickly take note of the fleeing vehicle's details, even if it vanished into the distance. At the time, this seemed like a clever way to deter careless drivers. But as the years rolled on, technology advanced. Today, we have traffic cameras on nearly every corner, dashboard cams in cars, and nearly everyone carries a phone, capable of snapping a photo in seconds. Modern surveillance and communication tools have made such mechanical name-dropping devices completely obsolete. 25 hated 1970s cars that are better than drivers remember. The 1970s were a game-changing era for cars, filled with bold designs, gas crises, and rising regulations. While some cars flopped back then, time has a way of turning them into coveted classics. Join us as we explore the once overlooked vehicles of the 70s that are now worth more than ever. Curious? Let's dive in. AMC Pacer. Alongside the Gremlin, AMC introduced another bold and unconventional hatchback in the 1970s, the Pacer. At a time when gas prices were soaring, American automakers had to rethink their approach to car design. The Pacer was AMC's attempt to stay relevant in a market shifting towards smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. Unlike anything else on the road, it featured a bubble-like shape with massive windows, making it look futuristic compared to its boxy competitors. Hatchbacks were still a relatively new concept in the US, but they were gaining traction thanks to their practicality and improved aerodynamics. The Pacer aimed to take full advantage of this trend. It was wide yet compact, offering a spacious interior while keeping fuel consumption reasonable. However, its radical design wasn't for everyone. Some loved its futuristic styling, while others found it downright bizarre. Unfortunately, the Pacer never became the success AMC had hoped for. Sales were underwhelming, and despite its innovative approach, it couldn't save the struggling automaker. Today, the Pacer has earned a cult following, particularly among collectors who appreciate its oddball charm. Though AMC eventually folded into Chrysler, the Pacer remains a fascinating relic from a time when automakers were willing to take big risks to stay in the game. Chrysler Cordoba. Introduced in 1975, the Chrysler Cordoba was the brand's first foray into the personal luxury coupe market. With its signature Corinthian leather seats, opera windows, and upscale styling, the Cordoba aimed to offer a refined experience at a competitive price. Initially, the formula worked. Chrysler moved hundreds of thousands of units, thanks in part to a memorable advertising campaign featuring actor Ricardo Montalban. However, beneath the stylish exterior, the Cordoba suffered from quality control issues, lackluster performance, and poor reliability. As the decade wore on, tightening emissions regulations and rising fuel prices sapped its power, and buyers turned to more refined alternatives. By the early 1980s, the Cordoba had faded into obscurity. Chevrolet Vega. Chevrolet has produced some of the most legendary cars in automotive history, but the Vega isn't exactly one of them. When it hit the market in the early 1970s, it was meant to be GM's answer to the rising demand for small, fuel-efficient cars. Unfortunately, it became infamous for all the wrong reasons: poor reliability, rust issues, and an aluminum engine that had a habit of overheating. Simply put, the Vega was a headache for many owners. But not everything about the Vega was a disaster. Its styling, while not groundbreaking at the time, has aged surprisingly well. and in today's classic car market, it stands out as a nostalgic piece of 1970s automotive history. What's more, the Vega's lightweight body and rear-wheel drive layout made it an attractive choice for gearheads looking to swap in bigger, more powerful engines. It didn't take long for the car to gain a following among hot rod enthusiasts who saw its potential as a budget-friendly performance machine. Despite its troubled past, the Vega has carved out a niche for itself in the collector's world. With a dedicated community keeping these cars alive, it's not uncommon to see Vegas fully restored or heavily modified at car shows today. Opel GT, often referred to as the Baby Vette, the Opel GT drew heavy inspiration from the Chevrolet Corvette, and for good reason. With its swooping curves, pop-up headlights, and low-slung stance, the resemblance to America's sports car was unmistakable. Despite its European roots, the Opel GT had a performance edge that made it a thrilling drive. Its lightweight chassis, paired with a responsive engine, delivered an engaging experience that was surprisingly on par with some sports cars of the era. However, timing wasn't on its side. The 1970s fuel crisis shifted consumer preferences toward economy cars, and the Opel GT's price tag made it a tough sell. As a result, it never gained mainstream popularity. Today, though, the car is recognized as a hidden gem among classic sports car enthusiasts. With its Corvette-like aesthetics and nimble handling, the Opel GT is now a sought-after collector's item that delivers vintage performance at a bargain price. What's your favorite underrated car from the 1970s that we didn't mention? Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto was a bold move for the company, marking a shift towards smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. Before the oil crisis of the 1970s, American cars were all about size, power, and presence. But rising fuel prices and an influx of efficient Japanese imports forced U.S. automakers to rethink their strategy. Enter the Pinto, Ford's answer to the demand for a compact, budget-friendly car that could take on foreign competition. On paper, it seemed like a smart move. It was lightweight, affordable, and offered decent fuel economy. However, the Pinto became infamous for one of the biggest scandals in automotive history. Due to a critical design flaw, the gas tank was positioned in a way that made it highly vulnerable in rear-end collisions. If hit hard enough, the tank could rupture and catch fire, leading to tragic accidents. Ford's decision to delay a fix, due to cost concerns, resulted in lawsuits, recalls, and lasting damage to the Pinto's reputation. Despite its dark history, the Pinto has found a second life among collectors and custom car builders. Some enthusiasts have turned them into drag racers with massive V8 engine swaps, proving that even the most controversial cars can have a place in automotive culture. Subaru Brat. The Subaru Brat, bi-drive recreational all-terrain transporter, was an odd but innovative entry into the small truck market. Designed as a compact utility vehicle, the Brat took inspiration from the Chevrolet El Camino, but added Subaru's signature touches, most notably a flat 4 engine and all-wheel drive. These features made the Brat surprisingly capable, giving it an edge in off-road conditions where similar vehicles struggled. One of its most bizarre yet defining characteristics was the pair of rear-facing jump seats in the truck bed, which allowed Subaru to classify it as a passenger vehicle and avoid the high tariffs imposed on imported trucks. While the Brat didn't initially achieve mainstream success, it gained a dedicated following over time. Today, it's a sought-after collector's item, especially among off-road and adventure enthusiasts who appreciate its quirky design, solid engineering, and go-anywhere capability. Mercury Bobcat. The Mercury Bobcat was essentially a dressed-up version of the Ford Pinto, but that didn't save it from the controversy that plagued its twin. Launched in the mid-1970s as Mercury's attempt to offer a more upscale compact, The Bobcat shared nearly everything with the Pinto, including its notorious fuel tank placement that made it a safety liability. Though Mercury gave it minor styling tweaks, such as a fancier grille, upgraded trim, and more chrome, it still couldn't shake the Pinto's shadow. Performance-wise, the Bobcat didn't impress. Its small four-cylinder engines delivered sluggish acceleration, and the handling wasn't much to brag about either. Competing against well-built, fuel-efficient imports from Japan, the Bobcat struggled to attract buyers. Mercury marketed it as a more refined alternative, but with minimal differences from the Pinto, consumers weren't convinced. At a time when Mercury as a brand was already losing its identity, the Bobcat only added to its struggles. Despite its rocky reputation, the Bobcat has become a rare sight on today's roads. Those that have survived are mostly in the hands of collectors who appreciate its oddball status. Ford Mustang Cobra II. The Ford Mustang is one of the most legendary names in American muscle car history, but even this icon wasn't immune to the challenges of the 1970s. With rising gas prices and stricter emissions regulations, Ford had to rethink the Mustang's formula. The result was the Mustang II, a drastic departure from the powerful pony cars of the past. Instead of a muscular, high-performance machine, it was downsized and built on the same platform as the Pinto, a move that didn't sit well with longtime Mustang fans. To add some excitement to the lineup, Ford introduced the Cobra II, a performance-inspired version with aggressive striping, a hood scoop, and spoilers. Unfortunately, the flashy looks didn't translate into real muscle under the hood. Strangled by emissions regulations, the Cobra II's V8 was a shadow of the fire-breathing engines that had defined earlier Mustangs. While it wasn't a terrible car, it lacked the raw power enthusiasts craved. Do you own or remember driving any of these classics? Share your story. Ford Country Squire. For decades, the Ford Country Squire was the quintessential American family car. With its unmistakable wood paneling, long body, and spacious interior, it embodied the golden era of station wagons. This full-size wagon could seat up to 9 passengers, making it the go-to vehicle for road trips, family vacations, and suburban life. The Country Squire became a pop culture icon, thanks in part to its appearance in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where it was both admired and comically ridiculed. Initially overlooked by collectors, the Country Squire is now gaining appreciation, particularly among enthusiasts nostalgic for classic American wagons. As SUVs and crossovers dominate the market, vintage wagons like the Country Squire represent a bygone era of automotive design. Restored models are becoming more valuable, and enthusiasts are recognizing their charm, practicality, and status as a true piece of Americana. AMC Gremlin. The AMC Gremlin had one of the most unconventional designs of the 1970s. Some would say downright strange. It looked like someone took a regular sedan and chopped off the back, leaving an abrupt, almost unfinished rear end. But there was a reason for this quirky styling. AMC was a smaller company with a limited budget, so instead of developing an all-new car, they repurposed existing parts to create something unique. Under the hood, the Gremlin wasn't exactly a thrill ride. It wasn't built for speed, and its handling wasn't particularly refined. But then again, most economy hatchbacks of the era weren't known for their performance. What it did offer, however, was a surprisingly roomy interior for such a compact car. It was an affordable, fuel-efficient option during a time when gas prices were becoming a real concern for American drivers. Despite its practicality, the Gremlin faced criticism for its questionable reliability and inconsistent build quality. AMC was struggling as a company, and the Gremlin reflected the brand's financial challenges. Yet, over time, this odd little hatchback has gained a cult following. Today, well-preserved Gremlins have become collector's items, fetching impressive prices at auctions. a fate few would have predicted back in the day. Chevy Chevette. Few cars in Chevrolet's history have been as ridiculed as the Chevette. When it debuted in the mid-1970s, buyers were left scratching their heads. Why would General Motors, known for its powerful V8 muscle cars and full-size sedans, release a bare-bones, underpowered compact? The Chevette was meant to be an affordable, fuel-efficient alternative during the oil crisis, but it fell short in almost every category. It wasn't particularly fast, nor was it the most economical car on the road. And with its basic interior and lack of modern features, it wasn't winning any comfort awards either. Yet, despite its shortcomings, the Chevette had an impressive production run, sticking around for over a decade as Chevy's entry-level offering. Many of these cars were driven into the ground, succumbing to rust or mechanical failure. But, in an odd twist, the Chevette has found a niche following in recent years. With so few surviving examples in good condition, collectors are beginning to see it as a relic of a bygone era. A clean, low-mileage Chevette is now a rare sight, making it a quirky showpiece that represents the simpler, budget-conscious side of 1970s motoring. GMC Sprint. In the early 1970s, GMC briefly dipped its toes into the passenger car market with the Sprint, a nearly identical twin to the Chevrolet El Camino. Sporting minor differences in badging, grille design, and trim. The Sprint was marketed as a more utilitarian alternative within GMC's truck-heavy lineup. However, it never gained the same recognition as its Chevy counterpart, leading to limited production numbers and an eventual discontinuation. While the El Camino became a muscle car cult classic, the Sprint faded into obscurity, until now. Collectors and enthusiasts have begun taking notice of its rarity, with values quietly climbing. As El Camino prices surge, more buyers are turning to the Sprint as an equally stylish and performance-capable option. Whether restored to factory specs or modified into a high-performance street machine, the GMC Sprint is finally stepping out of the El Camino's shadow and earning its place as a hidden gem in the collector's market. If you could bring back one 70s car with modern upgrades, which would it be? Cadillac Coupe de Ville. The 1970s Cadillac Coupe de Ville represented peak American luxury, an era when size, comfort, and presence mattered more than fuel efficiency. With its massive dimensions, long hood, and plush interior, the Coupe de Ville exuded status and sophistication. It was built for effortless cruising, offering a smooth ride and a powerful V8 that delivered commanding highway performance. However, as the fuel crisis hit in the mid-70s, the demand for oversized luxury cars declined, forcing GM to downsize future models. Despite this shift, the Coupe de Ville remains an icon among collectors. Its bold styling, signature Cadillac grille, and sheer road presence have made it a sought-after classic. Finding a well-preserved model today is becoming increasingly difficult, and prices continue to rise. As modern luxury cars prioritize efficiency over grandeur, the Coupe de Ville stands as a symbol of an era that will never be replicated, a true American land yacht. Plymouth Arrow. While Plymouth is best known for its muscle cars, few remember that the brand once ventured into the compact pickup truck segment with the Plymouth Arrow. Based on the Mitsubishi Fort and sharing similarities with the Dodge D50, the Arrow was a unique offering in an era when small pickups were gaining traction. It featured distinct Plymouth badging, a bold design, and a fuel-efficient four-cylinder engine, perfect for light-duty hauling and urban driving. Despite its practicality, the Arrow never gained widespread recognition, as Plymouth was primarily associated with performance vehicles. However, as the brand was discontinued in 2001, all remaining Plymouth models have gained collectability, and the Arrow is no exception. With most examples long gone due to age and wear, surviving units are rare and highly sought after by enthusiasts. If you spot one on the road today, consider it a rare glimpse into Plymouth's lesser-known history. AMC Hornet 360. The AMC Hornet 360 was a bold attempt to inject performance into an economy car lineup. Launched in the early 1970s, the Hornet was AMC's answer to the Chevrolet Nova and Ford Maverick. But with a twist, the optional 360 cubic-inch V8 gave it serious muscle car credentials. Despite its compact size, the Hornet 360 packed a punch, offering surprising acceleration and power for an affordable price. However, AMC's struggles with brand recognition and reliability issues kept the Hornet from reaching mainstream success. While the Chevy Nova dominated sales, the Hornet remained an overlooked underdog. Today, however, the car is gaining traction among enthusiasts, with many opting to swap in modern V8s for even more power. The Hornet 360 may not have been a sales hit, but in the world of sleeper muscle cars, it's a hidden gem. 1970 Dodge Dart Swinger. The 1970 Dodge Dart Swinger was Dodge's answer to young professionals seeking a stylish, performance-oriented compact. As a member of the Mopar muscle family, the Swinger stood out with its bold styling, optional vinyl roof, and aggressive stance. But its real appeal lay under the hood, offering everything from a modest slant 6 to a potent 340 V8, making it a lightweight powerhouse on the street. Despite its performance credentials, the Dart Swinger struggled against rising fuel prices and changing consumer preferences. However, time has been kind to this underrated muscle car. Today, the 1970 Dart Swinger is a sought-after classic, with Mopar enthusiasts eager to preserve and restore these hidden gems. Chevrolet El Camino. When it first hit the market, the Chevrolet El Camino was an oddity. Part muscle car, part pickup truck, and fully unconventional. While it had a loyal niche following, mainstream consumers were never entirely sold on its hybrid design. The cramped cabin and limited practicality made it a tough sell compared to traditional trucks, while muscle car purists often overlooked it in favor of the Chevelle or Camaro. Despite its striking styling and high-performance SS models, the El Camino never became a blockbuster hit in its prime. However, time has been kind to the El Camino. Once an underappreciated experiment, it has evolved into a highly sought-after collector's item. Restorers, hot rodders, and nostalgia-driven buyers are snapping them up, driving values to new heights. With its unmistakable silhouette and the ability to house big V8 power under the hood, the El Camino is now enjoying a well-deserved second life as a true automotive icon. Mercury Cougar. The Mercury Cougar went through significant transformations during the 1970s, struggling to find its place in Ford's lineup. Originally introduced as an upscale alternative to the Mustang, early models shared much of their DNA with Ford's pony car. However, by the mid-1970s, the Cougar shifted toward a larger, more luxurious design, moving away from its sporty roots. The elongated front end, heavy chrome accents, and plush interior signaled a transition from muscle car to personal luxury coupe, leaving enthusiasts divided. This shift made the Cougar stand out, but not necessarily in a good way. It lacked the raw appeal of its earlier versions, and Mercury struggled to market it effectively. Despite this, the Cougar has gained appreciation in modern times. Collectors now value its Mustang underpinnings and distinct styling, especially models with powerful V8 options. While it may have had an identity crisis in the 70s, today, the Cougar is a unique classic with growing desirability. Plymouth Sapporo. In the 1970s, Japanese automakers were rapidly gaining ground in the U.S. market, and American brands struggled to keep up. Enter the Plymouth Sapporo, a rebadged version of the Mitsubishi Galant Lambda, brought in to compete with the ever-popular Toyota Corolla. On paper, it seemed like a promising entry. Compact, fuel-efficient, and featuring a silent shaft four-cylinder engine designed for smooth operation. But in reality, the Sapporo struggled to stand out. The engine, while innovative, suffered under the weight of emissions regulations, which choked its performance. It lacked the reliability and refinement of its Japanese rivals, making it a tough sell for buyers who were already shifting toward Toyota and Honda. Inside, the Sapporo was simple and functional, but it failed to offer anything truly special. Plymouth did its best to dress it up, but at the end of the day, it was just another small car in an increasingly competitive market. Though it faded into obscurity, the Sapporo has recently found new life among enthusiasts who appreciate its unique place in Plymouth's history. With its retro styling and rear-wheel drive platform, some collectors see it as an underrated gem ripe for modification and restoration. Volvo 262C. Volvo has always been known for its durable, safety-focused sedans and wagons, but in the late 1970s, the company took a bold step into the luxury coupe market with the 262C. Designed in collaboration with Bertone, this sleek, two-door coupe aimed to compete with premium European brands like Mercedes-Benz. It featured a lower roofline, a plush leather interior, and a distinctive design that was unlike anything Volvo had produced before. The automotive press initially praised its build quality and refinement, but traditional Volvo buyers weren't convinced. The boxy, practical styling Volvo was known for had been replaced with something far more dramatic, and sales struggled as a result. Despite its lukewarm reception at launch, the 262C has aged surprisingly well. Its unique design now stands out as an example of Volvo's willingness to experiment, and collectors have taken notice. While it may not have been a bestseller, the 262C represents an important chapter in Volvo's history, one where the brand proved it could do more than just build safe family cars. Stutz Blackhawk. The Stutz Blackhawk was a car like no other, bold, extravagant, and unapologetically over the top. Introduced in 1970, it was a coach-built luxury coupe designed for the ultra-wealthy, boasting features like shag carpeting, gold-plated trim, and a trunk-mounted spare tire that gave it a regal presence. Built on a Pontiac Grand Prix chassis and powered by a big block V8, the Blackhawk wasn't just about looks, it had the muscle to back it up. Despite its opulence, the Blackhawk struggled in the market. With a sky-high price tag and arriving just as the 1970s fuel crisis hit, it was a tough sell. Still, it found favor among celebrities like Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin, who appreciated its exclusivity. Volkswagen Type 181. Nicknamed The Thing, the Volkswagen Type 181 was one of the most unusual vehicles to come from VW in the late 20th century. Originally developed as a military transport for European forces, the Type 181 was a rugged utilitarian vehicle with a distinct boxy design. It shared mechanical components with the Beetle, including its air-cooled flat-4 engine and simple suspension system. However, its stripped-down, military-inspired aesthetic was a far cry from the smooth curves of Volkswagen's more famous models. When it arrived in the US in the early 1970s, the Type 181 stood out, appealing to adventurous drivers looking for something different. It wasn't a mainstream success at the time, but in recent years, it has gained a cult following. Restored examples fetch high prices, and enthusiasts love modifying them for off-road adventures. If you find one in good condition, expect to pay a premium for this quirky piece of Volkswagen history. Ford Ranchero. In the ongoing rivalry between American automakers, Ford introduced the Ranchero as a direct competitor to the Chevrolet El Camino. While both vehicles shared the same car-meets-truck concept, the Ranchero struggled to carve out a strong identity. It often lagged behind the El Camino in terms of power, reliability, and overall appeal. The design, while distinctive, didn't resonate with buyers as much as its Chevy counterpart. As a result, the Ranchero remained in the shadows for much of its production run. However, Time has been kind to this unique Ford creation. In recent years, collectors and custom car builders have taken an interest in the Ranchero, and values are steadily climbing. With a modern V8 swap, the Ranchero can be transformed into a serious muscle machine that turns heads at car shows. For enthusiasts looking for a classic Ford with a unique twist, the Ranchero is quickly becoming a must-have. BMW E3 3.0 Psi. The BMW E3 3.0 Psi was a game-changer in the 1970s, marking BMW's rise as a serious contender in the luxury performance sedan market. At a time when American roads were dominated by oversized land yachts, the E3 stood out with its sleek, understated European design and precision engineering. Powered by a 3.0-liter inline-six engine, it delivered impressive performance, blending speed with refinement in a way that few cars of the era could match. This model played a crucial role in shaping BMW's identity and laid the foundation for the brand's now famous slogan, "The ultimate driving machine." With sharp handling, a well-balanced chassis, and an engaging driving experience, the 3.0C was far ahead of its time. Once an overlooked classic, its value has been steadily climbing as collectors recognize its significance. Citroën SM. Few cars embody innovation quite like the Citroën SM. Launched in the early 1970s, this sleek Grand Tourer combined cutting-edge technology with avant-garde design, making it one of the most distinctive luxury cars of its time. It featured a hydropneumatic suspension system powered by pressurized liquid, delivering an ultra-smooth ride that felt almost otherworldly. Additionally, the SM was equipped with self-leveling headlights, variable assist steering, and a Maserati V6 engine, an unusual but exciting blend of French engineering and Italian performance. Despite its brilliance, the SM struggled in the US market due to tightening regulations and Citroën's eventual withdrawal from North America. However, its legacy has only grown stronger. Automotive enthusiasts, including Jay Leno, recognize its place in history, and its value continues to rise. With its futuristic design and innovative technology, the Citroën SM remains a rare and fascinating piece of automotive excellence. Over the years, the auto industry has delivered some truly unforgettable and downright bizarre features. While some made life easier, others just made us scratch our heads. Did we miss one of your favorites? Drop it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this trip down automotive memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Who Remembers with someone who loves car history.